actually broadcasting to the internet, so anything you say in the room is going to be broadcast to the world and recorded forever. So full disclosure. That has never been a problem. Cool. Okay, cool. Should we get started? How do you folks feel? Now you can, if you're at home, you can probably just hear me now because I haven't been talking. And excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm going to cough a lot, but I'm not contagious. I'll cover my mouth. So. Cool. Okay. Thanks for coming. Let's get started. I want to talk a little bit about RailsSchool and NoiseBridge, and go over the agenda for tonight, and then we'll actually do intros, and then we'll get started, and we'll probably wrap up at 7 or 8:55 or so. If you live in the East Bay like me, we can run for a train. That sound good? And I might, if I forget to mention this, I'm seriously considering doing more Phoenix classes. Not because I'm a Phoenix expert. I'm most certainly not. I'm learning Phoenix, but I really like it a lot, and this is a great way for me to learn, and it seems like there's some interest from folks in checking it out. So we may or may not get all the way through our agenda tonight, probably based on experience we won't, which is cool, and maybe we can pick it up in a subsequent class. Also, I'm pretty much going to follow along a tutorial that I wrote on my company's blog, and it's pasted in the whiteboard. So you can also probably go home and pretty much pick up from where we left off here. And I wrote this mostly because when I was starting to try to get us started in Phoenix, I had a hard time finding a tutorial of suitable scope. Personally, that's how I learn new things. I kind of start with a tutorial, then I kind of like modify it a little bit. And there are a lot of great Phoenix tutorials out there, but they tend to be pretty big. Like they include front-end code, and I didn't want to worry about that. They also don't include tests, and I wanted to include tests. And then some of them did that, but they were outdated and wrong. So they broke. So this one is just JSON. No front end. Phoenix uses Brunch, a JavaScript library, to build the front end, so you can kind of use whatever JavaScriptness you're happy with. There's also sort of a Rails-like templating layer to it, so I just left that alone. But we also we'll write some tests tonight. I think that's important. So hopefully it's useful. Cool. So RailsSchool is normally about Ruby and Rails. But not always. We've done a class in Elixir, a class in Swift, some on Android development, definitely quite a few in JavaScript. So they tend to be mostly Rails, but also things that interest us as web and sometimes mobile developers. We've been around for about 3.5, 4 years now. We're actually founded by Gabe, who's sitting in the back corner there. And one of the goals of RailsSchool is sustainability. Has it been that long? I don't remember. Does it say? Does it say anywhere? So a few years. One of the goals is sustainability for teachers. I think we've hit pretty much every Tuesday since then, but we don't have an agenda or a syllabus. We teach what we are interested and passionate about at a given time. So we see all kinds of different topics, and we've had fun with that. And then sometimes we will kind of teach an informal series. Like if I taught an Elixir class a couple weeks ago. That's also recorded. And I'll probably do some follow-up Phoenix classes. So check out the website. Also, if you're interested in volunteering to teach, that's awesome. You can send us an email on the website. Teaching's super fun. You probably know more than you think you do, and we'd be better at it than you think. So. Cool. And then NoiseBridge. NoiseBridge just keeps getting more awesome. That new space is going to be a metal shop. Noisebridge is the space we're in. They don't charge us anything, which means we can teach the class for free, which is super awesome. But the landlord charges Noisebridge, and the power company does. So you think about kicking them $5 for a donation sometime. You can also buy T-shirts and stickers. Noisebridge is pretty cool. I was talking to a guy when I came in. You guys see all the bottles? Like big crates of bottles everywhere. Someone's making a video display with a bottle for each pixel, which is super crazy. Yeah. So Noisebridge is a neat thing. Cool. So I'll leave a note on the whiteboard here. So I think everyone watched me type that. We're going to do intros, and this is what I want to find out about everybody, if you will. And this helps me kind of tailor the class and figure out what we're going to talk about. I'll go first. I'm Brad. Maybe like a little bio. I'm a full-stack web developer. I'm self-taught. I started writing code on a daily basis in like 2012, 2011. And I mostly use Rails. I use Rails every day. I use JavaScript probably nearly every day. And lately, Rails is awesome. I love it. But I've been looking for things that both are kind of mind expanding in terms of programming and have different concepts, but also might be a good, interesting alternative to Rails in places where Rails might not be the best fit. So in particular, things that have to do with a lot of load or scale or go really fast. Rails is not super awesome at that. You can make it do it, but it seems kind of difficult. So, but also just looking for new things to have fun with, really. And I started playing with Elixir. I thought it was pretty neat. Elixir is a functional language. I've never used a functional language before, but it has a Ruby-ish syntax. So I kind of removed a lot of the barriers to the entry, just made it easier to learn. Then started playing with Phoenix and really like Phoenix a lot. Phoenix is a lot of fun. It's incredibly fast. And it has a lot of interesting similarities and differences to Rails that I think are good to think about in terms of just being better programmers and better builders of web things. So anyway, it's a little bit longer about me. And what I want to get out of the class is I want to keep learning about Phoenix and Elixir. I learn something in every class. So please, if you have, if I say something wrong, or you can add on to something I'm saying, or you think there'd be something interesting about this that, just please share. Cool. Let's start over here.
Cool. So I'm a mobile developer at Color Labs. I've been doing like coding on a daily basis since about 2011 also.
Cool.
Yeah, so I haven't done any Rails. I played with some Ruby scripts. So I haven't done any like back-end or web stuff. But a friend told me about Elixir and Phoenix, and I kind of just got really excited about it. I thought it was cool, and I'm really interested to learn more about it. So.
Hi, my name is Kyle, and I also work at Purple Labs with Rich, and I'm a full stack developer, so I build applications using like front-end client side using React and back-end using Rails. So Rich told me that Phoenix is an interesting framework, so I came here to see how interesting it is.
Cool, awesome, sweet.
My name is Michael Pope. A few years ago, I was a recruiter and I really got burned out on recruiting, so I taught myself to code. I've been working for the last few years as a Rails developer, most recently in Living Social. And about a month ago, I saw Living Social employed, so I somehow ended up in a Elixir/Python DevOps role. And I'm learning Python and Elixir as I go, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's a lot of fun. So I'm eventually going to touch Phoenix. I think I'll make an intro and just see what it's all about.
Awesome, sweet.
Hey, Mary. Also a web developer. I don't really have experience with Elixir Phoenix besides the class, the Elixir class from 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm just interested to see how Phoenix is and how it compares to current stuff we were using.
Charles, pretty much backend developer, Rails, been Rails for the last 6 years. Pretty much looking for Phoenix to see like what it offers in terms of language for services and microservices, architectures, so things can provide a good solution.
Sweet. Cool.
I'm Gabe. I work at a company called Minty, trying to help people adopt kids and help kids get adopted. And mostly use Rails, but I'm keen for an opportunity to use Elixir. I really like it. Everything's mutable to the core, and Phoenix looks really cool too. It looks like it's borrowing a lot of energy from Rails, and I'd like to sort of get ahead of it and stay on top of it.
Let's go around the back.
Hi, I'm Will. I'm a full stack dev. I mainly work with React and Node. I've done some work with Rails in the past. I do a lot of contract work, and I'm interested in learning more about Elixir and Phoenix because I heard about the speed and how fast it is, even compared to Node. So I'm always interested in learning new technologies.
I'm Sam. I'm an apprentice developer at Carbon 5. Started using Ruby and Rails last year, and I've just kind of been keeping tabs on Elixir and Phoenix. It just seemed like if there is like a next thing, this could be it, just because of the team and the progress that they're making. So I've always wanted to learn it, and then also just like I said, expand kind of different ways of programming, learning a functional language and all that.
Awesome. Cool.
I came because there might be new concept.
Awesome. What kind of programming do you program now? And if so, okay, cool. Awesome. Sweet.
I'm Luke. I currently work as an intern for the nonprofit Women's Code, and I mostly develop in Rails and Elixir. And this is really my first exposure to Elixir and Phoenix. Just did a tutorial online, and it's pretty interesting, so I'm excited to learn.
Cool. Awesome. Are you here for Rails School?
Why not?
Cool.
I didn't know about it, but I'm here.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, we're just finishing intros. So can I put you on the spot and have you?
Sure. My name is Jeff, and I like hackerspaces, so I came by.
Cool.
I've done a little bit of Rails. I don't do as much Ruby recently. Still something that's interesting.
Awesome. Sweet. Cool. Well, welcome. Okay, so I'd like to get a quick show of hands. So who has like built a few things with Rails? Just rough familiar. So most people, not everyone. That's okay. That's cool. I'll go a little bit light on the Rails comparisons to everything, but I will make them. So who has like played with Elixir before tonight? Most people, but kind of, sort of, maybe. Okay, cool, no problem. And then who has like built something with Phoenix? Curious. Or maybe played with Phoenix? Okay, cool.
I haven't built anything like here on the tutorial.
Okay, cool. Okay, sweet, awesome. That's good because hopefully we're going to introduce you to some awesome things. Like I said, I'm pretty new, right? So I am in the process of building my first thing with Phoenix. And what we're going to do tonight is basically go over the tutorial I wrote about the first part of that build. And it's a JSON server to make, it's an OEmbed JSON server. Who knows about OEmbed? I'm just super curious. No, but I didn't like a week ago, like 2 weeks ago. So it turns out, so you know when people share your thing on Twitter, Twitter will go to your site and it'll look for meta tags to figure out how to like unfurl the pictures and places and you know all that stuff. Well, it turns out what it'll first do is see if you have a thing called an OEmbed server. And if you have a thing called an OEmbed server, Twitter will go tell your OEmbed server about, it'll just make a request with the URL in the query string. And you're supposed to give it back JSON that actually describes the stuff in the meta tags. And this is better because Twitter doesn't have to like pull your whole page and parse the meta tags out. It's also better because because Twitter and Facebook and Google say it's better, and they kind of get to define reality. So, and anyway, also it seemed like a kind of simple, concise thing to make. So I made one with Phoenix. I'm also in the process of building a React front end for it. I'm definitely not a strong React developer. This is the first time I've used Redux or Flux or any pattern, so I'm sort of like, but if you're interested, this is my, it's actually the company GitHub. Right here, I'll put that in the whiteboard. So this is basically the code base that started with this tutorial. With just more work on it. So feel free to play with it and do what you will. Also, we're getting started here. The code for this tutorial is here. So this is sort of like a frozen in time version that I used to write this. Does that make sense to everybody? So hopefully you have plenty of resources. So my goal also is to kind of inspire you. It seems like there's a lot of people who are like really interested in Elixir and Phoenix, and I kind of hovered in that state for like 9 months. Yeah, go ahead.
Just ask a quick question. Like what makes Phoenix and Elixir so much faster than like Rails? Like, so for instance, like Node, where like there's like asynchronous processes. But like, what is it about Phoenix and Elixir that makes it special and makes it so performant?
This is a difficult, big question. No, it's a good one. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about Elixir and Phoenix, so why don't we do that? And then some other people might want to chime in. So Elixir is a language that targets the Erlang virtual machine, which is legendary for being robust and fast. It has really good native concurrency support. So I feel like JavaScript like pretends to be like concurrent async, but then actually really isn't, and so it's kind of the worst of both in some ways. But this is actually asynchronous with a great things I haven't played with too much, but really great, rich kind of tools to manage that. It does something really cool where you can start an Elixir process on imagine starting up a shell, starting 2 Elixir processes and having them send data to each other, right? Pretty simple concept. So you can do that in your shell, but you can also do that in a shell on another machine on the same network, and you can transfer data with the exact same, with no code changes between the processes running on 2 different machines on the same network versus in the same shell. And there's a great tutorial by the guy who invented the Elixir language that actually finishes with doing that experiment, which is super cool. So it definitely has really great support for concurrent processing. The other really cool thing about Elixir, and via Erlang, right? Another great thing about Elixir is that it has a let it crash philosophy. So you have the ability to start up supervisors for all your processes that can control what to do when a process crashes. And this is because Erlang was originally written by Ericsson to program telephone switches. So it's really good about fast concurrent processing that like never fails. Technically, why it's faster, I don't know. Yeah.
One of the things, like when you're using like Ruby or JavaScript, or like you have like all of like these variables and functions that are all very stateful, and like you have all of like this stuff that's essentially stored in one process. But if you want to say go from the first core of your CPU to the second core, there's not really a good way to send an object that has a bunch of like hard-coded variables assigned to it to the other processor. And in a functional language like Elixir, a lot of that stuff is set up in such a way that's immutable. So like when you have a piece of data and you send it from one process to another process, that you can count on that data always being consistent because it can't be changed. And so that's one of the reasons
you can make it a lot more concurrent than something like Ruby, which relies on a single process and threads within that process. That's like the main example. That's one example.
Also, it compiles to bytecode, an obvious, which I assume has an obvious performance increase. So we don't have to interpret in real time. It also gives us some static code analysis. That is. Anyone else want to offer? The Erlang virtual machine, Beam, has also been worked on for like 40 years. So that's a good question. I definitely like Elixir a lot better than working in JavaScript. Not to like rag on JavaScript, but yeah, functional programming is a really kind of awesome way to think. But you know, I think everything's not best for everything. You know, and you know this seems like a really good tool if you need to really make a super fast you know, service or API or whatever, especially where concurrency is really important, or you want to be able to scale across a lot of machines really fast, and or you want it to be super duper reliable. And you know, not every web app, you know, has those criteria, and you're gonna, you know, you're not gonna have the rich kind of JavaScript NPM ecosystem you're gonna have with a lot of developers and a lot of resources. So it's definitely gonna be a sacrifice to choose it. Yeah.
I remember like watching a video of Jose from back in 2012 or 2013 when he was first introducing Elixir, and he mentioned one of his big motivations was using all your cores, like Michael said.
Yeah.
That Ruby seemed like kind of a dead end, frankly, because it was so tedious to work and multi-thread and so forth. And he was poking around with Erlang and liked it, but saw this opportunity for something sort of novel. But when he was motivating, like, hey, everybody take a look at Elixir, his point was that you can do functional programming across many cores with lots of pleasant feelings.
It is pretty pleasant to work with, really, which is great. Yeah, somewhere on the page it says that he was, you know, Jose, the guy who made this, is also on the Rails team, like the Rails core team, and his job was to try to make some part of Rails thread safe, and like didn't like rage quit, but kind of like rage researched. Cool. Okay, and Phoenix. Phoenix is different than Elixir. Like Rails is different than Ruby. Phoenix is a web framework made for the Elixir language, and it's very Rails-ish, very Rails-ish. I've actually not worked in I haven't worked in like Django or any sort of, you know, object-oriented server-side MVC framework, so it might be very Django-ish too. But which is nice because, for better or worse, there's not a whole lot of like conceptual relearning that has to go on. There's models, and they do more or less what you'd expect. Controllers, more or less what you'd expect. It has views and templates, so that's a twist. Is that like a temporary tour it's going on? Cool. You can yell it down if it's too noisy. So, and we'll get into it. Cool, does that sound good? Any questions about like what this is and why we're looking at it and stuff like that? Cool. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about is mix. So I'm going to add an agenda item here called mix. So if you want to code along at home, now is a good time to get that going. You want to make a directory. And if you don't have Elixir and Phoenix installed now, you can do so, but you'll have to catch up. I'm probably not going to wait too terribly long. Just in the interest of other folks, you can always watch this on the recording. So cd into some appropriate directory. And we're going to first say mix. Anyone want to take a stab at what mix is? People who've played with this before.
It's like bundler plus rake.
Yeah, and the Rails command too, right? I don't know if it does what bundler does. Does it?
Yeah, I'm always using it to install crap.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, mix step skip. Yeah, totally. Yeah, so it does like all these things. You can use it to get dependencies. You can use it to make new Phoenix apps and run servers. And you can also do it to do things that you might do with Rake, like run tests. So we have one thing, which is cool, right? Because Rails is going this way, right? Aren't they getting rid of like Rake? altogether or something like that. The Rails, yeah, the Rails is doing something like that. Yeah, it's not scary though. No, I mean, they're just going to change the name of it. So we're going to do mix.phoenix new. And we just passed the name of the app state cased. It is an argument. You can call it whatever you want. This is a terrible name, I freely admit. We're going to hit this. And it's nice. It's going to ask us if we want to do this. If we all do this at once, we're going to crush the wireless, which we probably are doing, but that's fine. Notice we're using NPM for some stuff, which is frankly kind of refreshing. You know, coming from a Rails background lately, I've felt a little friction. I'll be working in some like JavaScript thing, and I'll find some library or something that I'll need or want, and you know it's available via NPM, and there's no Rails gem for it, and it's really annoying. So it's nice to not have to worry about that as much. Also using Brunch instead of an asset pipeline is pretty cool. We won't talk about that much, but there's no asset pipeline like there is in Rails and Phoenix. You can use Brunch. You can also use any one of the 43 different build things you can do in JavaScript. You can use all of them or none of them, which I really like a lot. Cool. So everyone roughly okay so far? Made an app. We run a CD into it. And it's given us some helpful things. How to run the server, which we're not going to do. We'll talk about, well, let's talk about this now. This is really kind of weird here. IEX is the interactive Elixir shell, which is like IRB or Pry. This is the equivalent of running the Rails console. This starts an IEX session with mix including. Let's look and see what that big S switch actually does. Man, IEX. Man page? Oh, thank you. Anyone want to check this out real quick? I've just memorized this switch, and I don't know what it actually stands for. Well, we can look later. Does anyone want to figure it out real quick and see if we can figure out what this script? Cool. Okay, that makes sense. This is what you do. So this starts your Rails shell, and you can also run mixed test and things inside an IEX session, which is sort of not something we do in Rails. So you can also do it with your server. So you can start a server just by saying mixedphoenix.server. You can also run a server like this. And the reason so far that I know that you would want to do it with IEX is that that's how you pry things in Elixir and Phoenix. There is a thing called pry, and it does what you'd expect. You say in your code, you say IEX.pry, and that opens a breakpoint and gives you a nice shell right there. Only if you use IEX to run your thing, including tests on the server. You also have to require IEX, but you'll Google for that, figure out. But anyway, the point is that remember to, in order to use the pry thing, you got to use IEX. Are there any other reasons to run your stuff inside of IEX? Does anyone's done this? So far, I don't know of any. It's more typing, so I tend to only do it if I really want to pry. Cool. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a database, and it says what to do. Actually, it says first we should configure our database, so let's do that. One of the really interesting things is we have a slightly different configuration setup in Phoenix. We have per environment configuration files, which should give us plenty of happy feelings being Rails developers, right? We know where we're going to look for stuff. We don't have a separate database configuration file, so we're going to open up the dev.ex and I'm using Postgres app, so I'm going to take out the username and password. It's going to work by default. So you guys, I just took that away. You may or may not need to do that. Inside config, we also have production and test. So let's fix the test thing up too. There's some interesting stuff in here, but I think we're going to run into all of these pretty much later on. Is the font okay? It's a little small. So if you've done this properly, then you should be able to do mix ecto create and create a database. Ecto is the library, an Elixir library used by Phoenix to do database-y type things, like handle migrations, create databases. And notice that we're actually compiling our whole app now to bytecode. It's going to take a while. But Phoenix is super smart, or Elixir is smart, or something is smart. And when you do this, you don't recompile it every time. Only the change files. But the first time we're going to eat it. But it feels super cool that we're compiling things, I think, right? The database for Phoenix all embed repo has already been created. That is because I named this the same as my other app. So I'm going to change my database name. See if I can convince us to coexist with the two other projects I've named the exact same thing. Probably a good idea is to not name multiple projects the exact same thing when using the same framework. And I don't know what's going to happen if I just do this again. If it doesn't work, oh, sorry, I was just going to nuke it and make a new app. People make a database? Anyone have any serious problems? Cool, sweet, awesome. So far so good, right? Not terribly earth-shattering stuff. So let's move on. So what do we want to do first? Remember, we're making an all-embed server, so we need to make something that basically takes an URL and spits back some JSON. That's all we need. Pretty simple. I'm going to vote, let's write it in migration. Anyone want to argue? Migration first, database migration, let's make a table. It actually turns out that we can take a shortcut and use generators. I'm not a big fan of generators in Rails. I don't use them at all for anything ever except migrations. But I've been using them in Phoenix, frankly, partially just to reduce the cognitive overhead on stuff to learn. And make sure I get all my boilerplate wiring wired up so I don't spend an hour because I mistyped some module name. So we're going to do that. Phoenix has a lot of different code generators you can use, which is cool. So